His regret is that every brother I've lost was in a moment when we were not getting on. And so I have to live with that, you know, and I'll spend my life reflecting on that.
The stage lights may still shine, but Barry Gibb's world looks very different at 79. Behind the glittering legacy of the Bee Gees lies a life shaped by staggering loss and quiet isolation. Fame couldn't protect him from watching nearly everyone he loved slip away, and how he lives now reveals a heartbreak few fans ever imagined. It can be said that Barry Gibb's world was irrevocably altered on January 12, 2003, when his younger brother Maurice Gibb died suddenly at the age of 53. Maurice suffered cardiac arrest following surgery for a twisted intestine, a devastating and unexpected loss that sent shockwaves through both the Gibb family and the music world. For Barry, the pain went far beyond public mourning. It was the moment he was forced to face life without one of the people who had shaped his identity from childhood onward. From the earliest days of the Bee Gees, Maurice was far more than a bandmate. He was Barry's closest collaborator, musical counterpart, and emotional stabilizer. As children, the brothers built their harmonies instinctively, learning to blend their voices long before fame arrived. That shared musical language carried them through decades of reinvention, from early pop success to the global phenomenon of the disco era and beyond. Maurice, a gifted multi-instrumentalist, anchored the group musically while often serving as its quiet diplomat, helping resolve tensions and keep the brothers united during difficult periods. When egos clashed or tempers flared, Maurice was often the one who smoothed things over. His sudden death shattered that foundation. For the first time in his life, Barry had to imagine creating, performing, and even simply existing without the constant presence of his brother. The loss abruptly ended a creative partnership that had lasted nearly 50 years, leaving Barry emotionally adrift. Music, once a source of comfort and connection, became painful. Every harmony reminded him of what was missing. Every chord progression felt like a conversation that could no longer be finished. The silence where Maurice's voice once lived felt unbearable. In the months following the tragedy, Barry withdrew from the spotlight. He openly admitted that he questioned whether he could ever perform again, let alone continue the Bee Gees without Maurice. For a man whose entire identity had been tied to the brothers Gibb, walking on stage alone was unthinkable. Maurice's death also forced Barry to confront his own mortality. Suddenly, the charts, the awards, the stadiums, all of it felt small compared to the fragility of a single human life. Fame, success, and legacy slid into the background. Family, time, and the terrifying speed at which everything could change came into focus. He became more reflective, more protective of his loved ones, more aware that no amount of money, fame, or talent can bargain with fate. Though Barry eventually found the strength to return to music, he did so as a different man. Maurice's absence was permanent, but so was his influence. Barry carried his brother forward through memory, honoring him in performances, in interviews, in quiet moments when no one else was watching. Life after Maurice was marked by grief, but also by gratitude. Gratitude for the decades they shared, the songs they wrote, the harmony they created, and the bond that even death couldn't erase. In learning to live without his brother, Barry discovered a quieter kind of resilience, one rooted not in chart positions, but in enduring love. Music. If losing Maurice broke the foundation, what came next nearly broke Barry himself. The day the twin flame went out. The loss of Robin Gibb on May 20th, 2012, marked one of the most devastating chapters of Barry Gibb's life, compounding a decade already defined by grief. Robin, Barry's fraternal twin in spirit if not by birth, and his lifelong creative counterpart, died at the age of 62 after a long and punishing battle with cancer. While Barry had already endured the shock of losing Maurice in 2003, Robin's passing carried a different, deeply intimate kind of pain, the pain of losing the other half of a musical and emotional mirror. Well, from childhood, Barry and Robin were inseparable. They didn't just share a band, they shared a voice, a vision, and a rare musical intuition that powered the Bee Gees for more than 50 years. When Barry wrote melodies, he heard Robin's tone. When Robin sang lead, Barry's instincts wrapped around him in harmony. Even when they disagreed, and they did, fiercely at times, the thread between them never fully snapped. They experienced success together, clashed over direction, split briefly, reconciled, and always returned to the music that defined them. By the time Robin became seriously ill, that long history made every setback harder to endure. Barry didn't just see a brother in the hospital bed. He saw a lifetime of memories, of sessions, of shows, of late-night writing sessions, all gathered in one fragile body. Robin's final decade was marked by immense hardship. He battled illness, endured treatment, and faced additional personal and family losses that weighed heavily on him. Barry has since spoken of the quiet strength his brother showed during those years, pushing forward, working on projects, and refusing to let the world see just how much he was suffering. Watching Robin fade physically while remaining mentally sharp was heartbreaking. For Barry, the helplessness was crushing. The bond they shared could create hits, change music history, and move millions of people, but it couldn't change a diagnosis. At Robin's funeral, Barry delivered a deeply emotional eulogy. He didn't speak as a global music icon tallying achievements. He spoke as a brother saying goodbye to someone he had known since boyhood, through poverty, struggle, fame, the backlash, reinvention, and grief. He thanked Robin for the life they shared. He mourned the pain Robin had endured, and he stood there, visibly shaken, suddenly the last man standing from the most famous brother act in pop music. For Barry, that service wasn't just a farewell. It was the closing of a chapter that began in childhood harmony and ended in a kind of silence he'd never known before. But long before Maurice and Robin, there was another loss, one that came even earlier, and set the tone for every goodbye that followed. Andy Gibb, the first heartbreak long before Barry Gibb was forced to say goodbye to Maurice and Robin, he had already endured a devastating family tragedy that left a permanent mark on his life. On March 10, 1988, Barry's youngest brother, Andy Gibb, died at just 30 years old from complications related to years of drug and alcohol abuse. Andy was the baby of the family. He wasn't officially a Bee Gee, but to the public, he was an extension of the Gibb magic. Handsome, charismatic, and dripping with talent. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Andy rocketed to fame as a solo artist, scoring multiple chart-topping hits and becoming a global teen idol almost overnight. He seemed destined for a long and brilliant career. But behind the magazine covers and screaming crowds, Andy was crumbling. The pressures of sudden fame, intense touring schedules, and constant public expectation began to take a brutal toll on him. While the older brothers had built their success slowly, Andy was thrown into the deep end of celebrity almost instantly. Barry, and already a seasoned star by the time Andy rose to prominence, watched his younger brother struggle with addiction as his career began to spiral. He tried repeatedly to help. He offered Andy guidance, support, chances to get clean, and opportunities to restart his life and career. At times, it seemed to work. Then the cycle would begin again. Addiction proved to be a powerful, relentless enemy. By the time Andy died, his body had been severely weakened. His heart simply couldn't take it anymore. The official cause was myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart worsened by years of drug and alcohol use. For Barry, Andy's death wasn't just tragic, it was haunting. It was the first major loss in the Gibb family. The first time he truly saw that talent, love, and fame weren't enough to save someone you care about. Yes, it planted an early awareness in him that there are some battles you can't fight for another person, no matter how hard you try. It left him with a painful mix of guilt, helplessness, and what-ifs that never fully went away. Unlike later losses that came with age and illness, Andy's death felt abrupt, unfinished, cruelly premature. A story that ended in the middle of a sentence. That wound followed Barry into every chapter of his life. It made him more protective, more anxious, more aware of how fragile his family really was. So when Maurice died, and later Robin, it wasn't just fresh grief, it was old pain, reopened. The feeling that loss had become a pattern he couldn't escape. The last BG and the weight of survival. As the years passed, Barry Gibb began to speak with increasing honesty about the emotional weight he carries as the last surviving member of the Bee Gees. In interviews and documentaries, especially the 2020 film The Bee Gees' How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, Barry reflects on loss not as something that happened and ended, but as something that stayed, outliving Andy, outliving Maurice, outliving Robin. It left him with a kind of loneliness that no amount of fame can fix. In the documentary, Barry doesn't talk like a Hall of Fame legend reciting career highlights. He talks like a man who walks on stage and hears ghosts in every song. He has openly said that the silence left behind is overwhelming. The absence of their voices, their jokes, their arguments, their harmonies has changed everything. For someone whose whole life was built around harmony, body collaboration, and a shared purpose, being the only one left with those memories is its own kind of heartbreak. Perhaps his most powerful admission is this. Barry has said he would trade all of the Bee Gees' success to have his brothers back. Coming from one of the most successful songwriters of all time, that sentence hits like a punch. Platinum records, sold-out tours, and global fame are nothing compared to the simple, impossible wish of having one more day with the people you grew up with. The cumulative grief has also reshaped who Barry is. For decades, he was one voice in a trio. The Bee Gees were always we, never I. Becoming the last Gibb brother forced him to confront not only loss, but survival. Why him? Why is he still here when they aren't? He has hinted at that survivor's guilt, the strange, yet unfair feeling of being left behind to carry the memories alone. And yet, he keeps talking, not to glorify himself, but to keep his brothers alive in the only way still possible. Through stories, through songs, through honesty. 79 years old, legend on paper, lonely in reality. By 2025 to 2026, Barry Gibb, now 79, stands as both a towering music legend and a deeply human, deeply wounded figure. On paper, his resume is unbeatable. One of the most successful songwriters in popular music. Hit records across multiple decades. Songs that still play at weddings, parties, and on late-night radio around the world. But behind the accolades is a man who has watched almost everyone who built that history with him disappear. To the public, Barry was once inseparable from the image of brotherhood. 3 men in matching suits, 3 falsettos, 3 silhouettes moving in unison under stage lights. Today, when people see him, they often comment on how different he seems. Not weak, not broken, just quieter. Like someone who carries a lot more than he says. Fans who watched How Can You Mend a Broken Heart often mention one thing, his eyes. You can see all the years in them. Not just the studio sessions and the awards, but the funerals, the hospital visits, the empty chairs at family gatherings. His catalog continues to influence younger artists. His songs are still sampled, remixed, covered. But every time a new version of a Bee Gees track climbs a chart somewhere, it happens in a world where Andy, Maurice, and Robin aren't around to hear it. That's the heartbreak of Barry's life now. The world still sings along, but the people who wrote the harmony with him are gone. Now as he's aged, Barry talks less about the music industry and more about family, less about chart positions, more about time. He doesn't measure his life in #1 hits anymore. He measures it in the people he's loved, and in the people he's lost. Being the last BG is both an honor and a burden. It means he gets to guard the legacy. It also means he has to guard it alone. Regret, reflection, and what he wishes he could change. In recent years, Barry has opened up about one of his deepest regrets. Not spending more time with his brothers in their final years. Not because he didn't love them, not because he didn't care, but because life, the career, the travel, the work, was always in motion. For decades, there was always another tour, another album, another meeting, another deadline. Yet the Bee Gees were a business as well as a band. And like so many people blinded by busyness, Barry now looks back and sees the moments he wishes he had slowed down for. He has said he wishes he had been there more, sat with them longer, talked about things beyond the next record or the next show, listened in those quiet, unglamorous moments when no cameras were around. It's not that he failed them. He tried, especially with Andy. He supported Maurice and Robin in countless ways, but regret doesn't always care about facts. It lives in the spaces between what we did and what we wish we'd done. That regret sits alongside another painful reality. No one left on Earth understands Barry the way his brothers did. They were the only ones who knew the whole story, from childhood moves and early struggles to global fame and public backlash. Their private jokes, their shared looks on stage, their unspoken cues, all of that now exists only in his memory. That kind of loneliness has nothing to do with being surrounded by fans or family. It's the loneliness of being the last person to remember a language no one else speaks. So where does that leave Barry Gibb today? He still performs occasionally. He still answers questions about songs written decades ago. He still smiles when people tell him his music changed their lives. But behind that smile is a man who has paid a very high price for a legendary career. He is the last keeper of 3 lost voices, the survivor of a harmony that can never be recreated, a man who would trade the world's applause for one more backstage laugh with his brothers. What do you think when you look at Barry Gibb's life now? Do you see a superstar at peace with his legacy? Or a man still learning how to live in a world where the music he hears in his head will never sound the same on stage again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story moving, don't forget to like the video, share it, and subscribe for more untold chapters from music history. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.